Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you are receiving this video. My name is Taylor Smith. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, I hope to get to soon. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the senior pastor of First United Methodist Church, The Colony. This last Saturday, on January 20th, we held our annual lay leadership retreat where we gather the ministry chairs and the board members from our leadership board together to kind of cast vision and direction for 2024. At that retreat, I shared some remarks related to United Methodist Disaffiliation and the General Conference that is coming up in April of this year, 2024. And it was requested of me to share those remarks with the rest of our congregation. And so I offer those to you now. I would argue that since COVID, churches, especially United Methodist churches, have been in a little bit of a hold pattern. General Conference happens every 4 years. Now, it's important for you to understand the polity of how conferences work. Every local church is required annually to host what's called a charge conference. Our charge conference is the elected members of our church, and it's open to the other members of the church to come. And that's where we vote on any really significant decisions that could affect assets, legalities related to the church. At our charge conference is also the time that we elect the members to go to our annual conference. We are situated in the North Texas Annual Conference. And at North Texas Annual Conference, equal part clergy and laity elect members from there to go to General Conference. General Conference happens every 4 years. It is a global conference of members of both clergy and lay members from all over the world who gather. And at General Conference, it is the only place that we can clearly and legally change any legislation that guides our life and ministry and mission together. It's important to know that in 2020, when we were scheduled to have another general conference, because of COVID, it was postponed. And the can got kicked a little bit until April of this year. This year's conference is called General Conference 2020, not General Conference 2024. Why? Because the legislation that is going to be taken up in April at General Conference is legislation that was on the table for General Conference 2020. There are two questions that I think are kind of ruminating in our congregation and in other congregations related to General Conference, and I would like to name both of those. One question is, how will General Conference affect our congregation? And number two, will a vote be taken related to disaffiliation? Let me answer number two first. In General Conference 2016, a piece of legislation was passed that created a paragraph in our Book of Discipline. That was paragraph 2553, which allowed an avenue for progressive Christian churches to graciously exit the United Methodist Church. What ended up happening is, instead of many progressive churches leaving, traditionalists took an opportunity to use that paragraph, and many churches voted to disaffiliate from the denomination. That process was specifically spelled out in a way that honored the trust clause, which is an important part of the important aspect of how churches are held in trust by annual conferences and so on and so forth. But what's important for you to know is that paragraph 2553 sunset on December 31st, 2023, which means that paragraph 2553 is no longer an option for churches to disaffiliate. So to that question, will our church take a vote? The answer is no. We will not be taking a vote regarding whether or not we leave the denomination. Currently, the only way that our church could leave through proper legal channels is if we decided as a church to close the church, which would mean selling the land and building back to the conference, and then if we decided to reopen. Now, that means we would have to buy the land back under a new name or purchase new property somewhere else. Now, to the second question, how might General Conference affect us? Here's what I do know, and take it for a grain of salt, because there are people with far much more important information than I have. But General Conference 2020, the legislation that is on the table for that conference, is primarily focused on regionalization. There are a thing called central conferences. So we've got charge conferences, that's the local church. Annual conferences here in America. So our annual conference is the North Texas Annual Conference, and it's kind of centralized around Dallas. It goes up to Wichita Falls, out to 35, and kind of East Texas towards Tyler a little bit. Outside of the United States, because there's so much area that makes up the rest of the world, annual conferences are organized into these things called central conferences. Now, there's legislation on the table for General Conference 2020 that could lead the United States, to being more regionalized. If that happens, what I could see happening is that another General Conference could be called a special session in 2026 that would focus on creating the structure for that regionalization to exist. Now, my assumption is that would look like the United States churches here, the United Methodist churches in the United States, moving to what was called a one church model. Now, one church was a piece of legislation that was on the table in 2016 that would allow for every local church to have a little bit more autonomy regarding their church's position on what are now kind of contentious matters, specifically ministry with LGBTQIA+ persons. So what could happen at General Conference 2020, and how will it affect our congregation? What I could see happening is General Conference leads to regionalization, and another General Conference 2026 happens a few years down the road, and maybe we move towards granting a little bit more autonomy for churches to be in ministry in ways that are specific to their mission field. If that is the case, it means that churches like Oaklawn United Methodist Church in Dallas, who are centralized right there in the neighborhood of Dallas, would continue to do ministry with people who are LGBTQIA. It means that we here in the colony would continue to pick up food and serve North Texas Food Pantry, and we would continue to host cantatas, and we would continue to pack food packs for Children's Hunger Fund. It means that the local church will continue to drive and identify what its mission is into the future. Right now, an important part of our polity is that each local church's board of trustees, which our board of trustees is our leadership board, are still responsible for setting our local church's building usage policies. It also means that our polity, as it currently exists, says that every local church's SPRC, Staff Parish Relations Committee, is still responsible for meeting with the district superintendent and engaging in prayerful discernment periods about what a new pastor might look like if one is to be appointed to their church. And so if there is concern about will we ever marry gay people in our church, or will we ever have a gay pastor, the chances are likely it depends on the leadership of your local church and the conversations that they have with the cabinet and the bishop and the district superintendents. So I offer all of this information to you as an opportunity to hopefully answer some questions around our future. If I can deviate from my notes a little bit, I just want to share this information. Most of you know my heart. I hold it pretty open and don't hold my cards too close to my chest. You know that I am, by all intents and purposes, socially speaking, a progressive pastor. But I also hope you know that as far as I'm concerned, I am here to shepherd our congregation spiritually, to be the most Christ-like to all whom we encounter. And it is my job to order the life of our church around the vision statement that you as a church landed on, to be a loving church, all working together to eradicate spiritual, relational, and nutritional insecurity in our neighborhood. Now, our annual conference made some decisions with their cabinet a while back when our new bishop came on board, and they have identified 5 strategic priorities. And we decided as a leadership to identify one of those priorities this year to challenge us to live into. And that priority is multiplying Jesus followers. Our vision statement is the same: be a loving church, all working together to eradicate spiritual, relational, and nutritional insecurity in our neighborhood. Our mission statement remains the same: to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. How we are going to do that this year is by focusing in on multiplying Jesus followers. Not much is going to change. We're still going to love one another and serve our community. And I hope and pray that you will continue to look forward to new opportunities for service this year as we continue to expand our partnerships with groups and organizations in our community that are doing really, really great work. One last thing. Over the next couple weeks, you'll be seeing some information come out about some listening sessions because we value your input and we'd like to know what your thoughts are as we look at adjusting our Sunday morning worship time. The reason that the conversation has come up about adjusting our worship time is based on our challenge for 2024, to multiply Jesus followers. Right now, our systems are designed to produce the fruit that they are producing. And as I look at our checkout numbers from last year and look at just the base metrics, the truth is we are not dying as a congregation, but we're not growing. And that's okay. That's okay. But it also means that maybe there's some work to do. And so we're going to prayerfully listen to you and to the Holy Spirit around what it might look like for us to adjust our worship schedule slightly so that we can create new opportunities for new families and new faces to more fully participate in the life of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, you may always reach out to me. First, it might be good to call the church office and schedule a time with me, or my email is taylor.smith@fumctc.org. We also have a phenomenal lay leader, Mr. Jay Putnam, and our current leadership board chair is Tina Klepfer. And if you have questions about ways to get in touch with them or questions for them, you may always go to them. I pray that you have a blessed day, and I pray that the peace of Christ go with you in all that you say and do. Amen.